Outside Buckingham Palace, a tourist mistakes ceremonial uniform for weakness and throws a punch at the motionless guard. Big mistake. In one explosive second, the disciplined soldier transforms from tourist photo op to combat veteran. The crowd gasps, then erupts in cheers as centuries of military tradition delivers an unforgettable lesson in respect. This isn't just a man in a fancy hat, it's Her Majesty's finest, showing exactly why you don't test the patience of the Queen's Guard. But before we jump back into the video, let us know where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow I've got something really special for you. And now, back to the video. The tourist's fist hangs suspended in time, caught mid-strike in the guard's iron grip. The ceremonial rifle shifts, and suddenly the attacker finds himself face down on Buckingham Palace gravel, the guard's knee precisely positioned between his shoulder blades. Phones record from every angle. Children whisper in awe. A tour guide smiles knowingly. The tourist's friends back away, recognition dawning in their inebriated eyes. They dared him to do it, never believing he actually would. "Bad decision, mate," murmurs an elderly Londoner, watching from the fence. But it's the look in the guard's eyes, cool, measured, utterly controlled, that silences the tourist's protests. This is a man who's faced far worse than a drunk's misplaced courage. What happens next will become legend. Corporal Michael Thornton had earned his position outside Buckingham Palace through 8 years of uncompromising service. 2 tours in Afghanistan, advanced close-quarters combat training, and a reputation for unwavering composure had placed him at this prestigious post. At 29, his military record was exemplary, though the shrapnel scars on his left shoulder and the occasional nightmares told a more complex story. That morning, his commanding officer, Major Winters, had updated the guards on security protocols. "Tourism season is peaking. Remember, you represent not just the regiment, but the crown itself." Thornton had nodded imperceptibly. He understood the weight of the bearskin cap and scarlet tunic better than most. His grandfather had stood this same watch decades ago, and his father had served in the Falklands. Military service ran in his blood like the Thames through London. "Any concerns before deployment?" Winters had asked. "None, sir," Thornton had replied, though a letter from his fiancée Charlotte weighed heavily in his breast pocket. Her father's illness had worsened, and discussions about Thornton potentially leaving the service had intensified. 8 years of duty versus a lifetime with the woman he loved, a battle between honor and heart that he couldn't yet resolve. Now, standing at his post under the late July sun, Thornton maintained the perfect stillness that was his hallmark among the regiment. Tourists flowed around him like a human river, their cameras flashing, their comments ranging from respectful whispers to outright taunts. Across the plaza, Ryan O'Malley was already on his 5th pint before noon. The 23-year-old construction worker from Boston was celebrating his first trip abroad with his 3 childhood friends. Their weekend in London was the start of a 2-week European adventure, one that Ryan had spent 6 months saving for, working double shifts in the biting Massachusetts winter. "Dude, these guards are like robots," laughed his friend Jake, pointing toward Thornton's position. "They really don't move at all?" "Not even if you insult the Queen," added Mitch, the self-proclaimed history buff of the group. "It's some kind of tradition or whatever." Ryan squinted at the motionless guard, alcohol emboldening his natural competitiveness. Growing up Thesmolest of 4 brothers, Ryan had developed a reflexive need to prove himself, to push boundaries, to test limits. It had earned him both a reputation for fearlessness and a collection of emergency room visits. "I bet I could make him move," Ryan declared, swaying slightly. "No way, man," said Derek, the most sensible of the group. "Those guys are elite soldiers. They'll arrest you or something." £20 says I can get him to react, Ryan insisted, reaching for his wallet and fumbling with the unfamiliar currency. "It's pounds, not dollars, genius," Jake laughed. "And know where you're doing it." "Watch me," Ryan said, draining his beer and starting toward Thornton with the characteristic swagger of a man whose confidence far exceeded his judgment. Among the crowd, Metropolitan Police Constable Yasmin Khan observed the American tourists with practiced attention. 7 years on the force had taught her to spot trouble before it materialized. The loud group of young men, particularly the shortest one, now approaching the guard, had triggered her professional concern. Possible situation at north entrance, she murmured into her radio, casually moving closer without drawing attention. Near the fence, 74-year-old Jeffrey Barnes adjusted his veteran's beret. The former Royal Marine had been bringing his grandchildren to see the changing of the guard for years. Today's outing with 8-year-old twins Emma and Oliver was a special treat during their summer visit from Edinburgh. "Why doesn't he move, Grandpa?" Emma asked, pointing at Thornton. "Discipline, love," Jeffrey explained, "the kind that comes from serving something greater than yourself." Oliver watched wide-eyed as the loud American tourist got closer to the guard. "That man looks like he's going to be silly, Grandpa." Jeffrey's weathered face grew concerned. "Indeed he does." As Ryan approached, he called to his friends over his shoulder. "This'll be epic. Keep your phones ready." Thornton remained motionless, but his peripheral vision tracked the approaching threat. A skill honed in Helmand Province, where the slightest movement often meant the difference between life and death. Ryan planted himself directly in front of the guard, swaying slightly, his face flushed with alcohol and bravado. "Hey, man, in the funny hat," he slurred loudly. "Do you actually do anything or just stand there looking stupid?" I said. "Do you actually do anything?" Ryan repeated louder, playing to his friends' cameras. Tourists stopped to watch, sensing confrontation. Thornton remained statue still, eyes fixed forward, though his battle-trained senses catalogued every detail. The tourists' intoxicated state, unsteady stance, the positioning of potential allies and threats in the crowd. "Maybe the Queen should hire real soldiers instead of mannequins," Ryan taunted, emboldened by Thornton's silence. Constable Khan moved purposefully through the crowd. "Sir, step away from the guard, please." "Oh, look, someone who actually does their job." Ryan laughed, backing up theatrically before Khan could reach him. A chorus of disapproving murmurs rippled through the British onlookers. Jeffrey tightened his grip on his grandchildren's hands, recognizing the dangerous glint in the American's eyes, the same look he'd seen in bar fights outside military bases decades ago. "Just one reaction. That's all I want," Ryan slurred, circling back as Khan was momentarily blocked by a tour group. Jake called out nervously, "Ryan, come on. You've had your fun." But Ryan was beyond listening. Years of needing to prove himself, amplified by alcohol and an audience, crystallized into a moment of catastrophic misjudgment. "Guess I'll have to make you move," he announced. The next seconds unfolded with terrible clarity. Ryan's clumsy swing aimed for Thornton's chest. A collective gasp from the crowd. The guard's eyes, the only part of him permitted to move, registered the incoming threat with cold precision. 8 years of military training and combat experience, compressed into a split-second decision. Ryan's fist never reached its target. Thornton's hand shot up with cobra-like speed, catching the punch mid-air. His ceremonial rifle shifted to High's other hand as he pivoted with drill-ground precision. One fluid motion, and Ryan found himself face down on the gravel, arm locked behind his back, the guard's knee firmly between his shoulder blades. "Bad decision," Thornton said quietly. "Very bad decision." Constable Khan arrived as Thornton efficiently restrained Ryan, her radio already in hand. "Officer requesting backup at north entrance. Tourist detained after assaulting a guard." The crowd had transformed from passive observers to active participants, phones recording every second. A spontaneous round of applause erupted as Ryan was hauled to his feet, his bravado replaced by confusion and the dawning horror of consequence. "You can't arrest me. I'm an American citizen," Ryan protested as Khan cuffed him. "Actually, sir, I can and I am," Khan replied evenly. "Assaulting a Queen's Guard is a serious offense." Ryan's friends hung back. Their earlier encouragement evaporated. Jake approached cautiously. "Officer, he's just drunk. He didn't mean—" "Enabling an assault makes you an accessory," Khan cut him off. "I suggest you all come to the station to make statements." In the palace security office, Major Winters reviewed the incident footage with grim satisfaction. "Textbook. Response, Corporal," he commended Thornton. "Minimum force, maximum efficiency." Thornton stood at attention. "Thank you, sir." "Unfortunately, there will be an inquiry. Standard procedure when a guard engages with a tourist." Winters sighed. "Americans involved means diplomatic considerations." "I understand, sir." You're on administrative leave until the review board convenes. Winters eyed him closely. The press is already calling. This video has gone viral. Thornton maintained his composure, though Charlotte's letter seemed to burn in his pocket. Administrative leave, a perfect opportunity to visit his future father-in-law, yet tainted by professional uncertainty. At the police station, Ryan's bravado had completely collapsed. Sobering in a holding cell, the magnitude of his actions hit him with crushing force. The U.S. Embassy has been notified, Detective Morris informed him. But don't expect diplomatic immunity. Assaulting a guard can carry up to 6 months imprisonment. Ryan's hands shook. I have a job. Payments due. His construction career, his apartment, the life he'd built, all jeopardized by 5 seconds of alcohol-fueled stupidity. His friends waited outside, their European adventure derailed. Derek's disappointment cut deepest. You had to push it, didn't you? Always have to be the big man. Jeffrey Barnes returned home to find his morning visitor still waiting. The BBC reporter smiled hopefully. Mr. Barnes, you witnessed the incident. As a veteran yourself. I saw a professional soldier respond to provocation with remarkable restraint, Jeffrey stated firmly. That guard honored his uniform today. The reporter nodded. Would you be willing to say that on camera? The guard's been identified as Corporal Michael Thornton, Afghanistan veteran. 2 tours, mentioned in dispatches for bravery. Your perspective as a former Royal Marine would provide valuable context. Jeffrey considered the request. His military service had ended decades ago, but some bonds never broke. The young corporal deserved a defender who understood duty's price. Very well, he agreed, but I speak as a veteran, not as entertainment for your viewers. The tourist has connections, Major Winters announced grimly, sliding a dossier across his desk. Thornton opened the file, confusion clouding his features. Senator O'Malley? I don't understand, sir. Ryan O'Malley is the nephew of U.S. Senator James O'Malley, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee and close personal friend of our Foreign Secretary. Winters' expression darkened. The senator is pressuring the Foreign Office to resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding without charges. Thornton's jaw tightened. Misunderstanding, sir. He assaulted a Queen's Guard on duty. I'm aware, Corporal, but the diplomatic pressure is significant. The office door opened abruptly. Colonel Harrington, their regimental commander, entered with a stern-faced civilian in an expensive suit. Corporal Thornton, this is Mr. Lawrence from the Foreign Office, Colonel Harrington said, his tone unusually formal. He wishes to discuss options. Lawrence adjusted his glasses. Corporal, we're exploring a diplomatic resolution. The American Embassy suggests a joint statement, you acknowledging potential overreaction, them apologizing for the tourist's conduct. Overreaction, sir? Thornton remained at attention, though his voice carried a dangerous edge. I followed protocol. Exactly. Politics, Corporal, Lawrence sighed. Sometimes appearances matter more than facts. In his hotel room, Ryan stared at his uncle's text message in disbelief, calling in favors. Stay quiet. This will go away. His friends had left for Paris without him, his passport confiscated pending charges. Yet now, unbelievably, his family connections might erase consequences that ordinary people would face. A knock at the door revealed a consular official. Good news, Mr. O'Malley. We've made progress with the Foreign Office. Ryan felt unexpected shame rather than relief. The viral videos showed his actions with humiliating clarity. No family connection could erase millions witnessing his behavior. What? About the guard? Ryan asked suddenly. Is he in trouble? The official's hesitation spoke volumes. There's a review process. Standard procedure. Jeffrey's television interview had gone viral, his dignified defense of Thornton resonating with military families worldwide. Charlotte watched it in her father's hospital room, pride warring with worry. Her phone rang, Thornton calling hours earlier than expected. They want me to apologize, he said without preamble, his voice tight. Say I overreacted. In exchange, all charges against O'Malley will be dropped. Charlotte gasped. That's absurd. The videos clearly show politics. Thornton interrupted bitterly. His uncle is a U.S. senator. What will you do? The silence stretched between them. If I refuse, my career is effectively over. The regiment won't officially dismiss me, but there'll be no promotions, no preferred postings. And if you agree? Charlotte asked softly. Then I betray everything the uniform represents, Thornton answered, the weight of generations of family service evident in his voice. I'd be saying duty comes second to diplomacy. As he spoke, Thornton's phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had leaked the proposed deal to the press. The headline was already spreading. Palace considers apology to Senator's nephew after guard incident. The public backlash was immediate and fierce. Public outrage erupted across Britain. Stand with Thornton trended globally, with veterans, celebrities and ordinary citizens condemning the diplomatic interference. Outside Buckingham Palace, tourists and locals alike left supportive signs and military medals in a spontaneous tribute to the Guard's professionalism. Thornton sat in his small flat, staring at his mobile phone as messages poured in from fellow soldiers and strangers alike. The regiment had ordered him to maintain total silence. No comments to press, no social media posts, but the leaked diplomatic proposal had sparked a firestorm beyond anyone's control. Charlotte called again, her voice tight with worry. The hospital staff showed Dad the news. He wants to speak with you. I'm not sure that's a good idea right now, Thornton replied, conscious of how his situation might stress a seriously ill man. Michael, she said firmly. He served 30 years in the regiment. He understands what you're facing better than anyone. Minutes later, William Hartley's frail voice came through the speaker. Corporal, he began formally, his illness unable to erase decades of military bearing. I've watched that video 20 times. You did nothing wrong and everything right. Thank you, sir, Thornton replied, the old man's military title slipping out instinctively. They're asking you to lie, William continued, his voice strengthening with conviction. To say a perfect response was flawed, to undermine not just your own honor but the regiment's. If I refuse my career, your career is more than promotions. Son, it's the integrity you bring to the uniform. A painful cough interrupted him. When I faced my own impossible choice in Northern Ireland, I chose truth over advancement. Never regretted it, though I remained a lieutenant while lesser men became majors. Thornton listened intently, hearing the wisdom of experience. What would you do in my position, sir? I'd remember that some hills are worth dying on, William answered, and some principles worth sacrificing for. Across London, at the American Embassy, Senator James O'Malley stormed into the ambassador's office, his face flushed with rage. This should have been handled quietly, he thundered. Now it's an international incident. Ambassador Collins maintained her composure. With respect, Senator, your nephew assaulted a decorated combat veteran on camera. There are limits to diplomatic privilege. He's a kid who made a mistake. He's 23, Senator, old enough to serve in our military or face consequences for assaulting someone else's. She slid a folder across her desk. These are the comments on the White House social media accounts. Americans are overwhelmingly supporting the British Guard. The senator scanned the document, his political instincts recognizing a losing battle. His re-election campaign was already struggling. Becoming the symbol of entitled American exceptionalism would be disastrous. What are our options? He asked, deflated. Ryan pleads guilty, makes a public apology, pays a substantial fine, and returns home with a suspended sentence. The ambassador's tone brooked no argument. It's the best deal we can hope for now. Major, Winters found Thornton at the regiment's memorial wall, staring at the names of fallen comrades. The Foreign Office is withdrawing their request, Winters announced without preamble. Public pressure was too intense. Thornton nodded, relief warring with lingering anger. Thank you for informing me, sir. Don't thank me yet. Winters' expression remained grave. The Americans have proposed an alternative solution. The charges against O'Malley will proceed, but they've requested you not participate in the changing of the guard ceremony during his court appearances. They fear it might appear provocative. They want me hidden away, sir, as if I did something shameful. Not my decision, Corporal. Orders from above. Thornton's eyes returned to the memorial wall, to names of men who had given everything for the uniform he wore. With respect, sir, I must formally request that any such order be put in writing, with specific justification noted. Winters raised an eyebrow. That sounds dangerously close to insubordination, Corporal. No, sir. It sounds like properly following protocol for an order that contradicts standard regimental practice without clear security justification. Thornton's gaze was unwavering. As you taught me, sir, we document unusual orders to protect both those giving them and those carrying them out. A flicker of respect crossed Winters's face. I'll convey your request. As the Major departed, Thornton's phone vibrated. A text message from Jeffrey Barnes. The BBC wants us both for an exclusive interview, veterans standing together. Say the word, and I'm there. Thornton stared at the message, knowing his next decision could end his military career, or define it. The order arrived in writing. Corporal Thornton was to be temporarily reassigned to administrative duties, away from public view during O'Malley's hearing. Colonel Harrington delivered it personally, his disapproval evident despite his professional demeanor. This isn't the regiment's decision, Harrington clarified, political pressure from the highest levels. Thornton read the document carefully, noting its careful wording about security concerns and public interest. A transparent facade covering political appeasement. I understand, sir, Thornton replied, his decision already made. He had texted Jeffrey Barnes earlier, interview accepted. Across London, Ryan stood before his hotel mirror, practicing his court statement. The embassy provided. Lawyer had been clear. Full admission of guilt, genuine remorse and deference to British law were his only path to avoiding imprisonment. I deeply regret my actions and take full responsibility. He rehearsed, the words feeling hollow despite their truth. His uncle had abandoned intervention after the public backlash, leaving Ryan to face justice without political shields. Morning headlines announced a special session of the changing of the guard with unprecedented public interest. Palace security. Prepared for record crowds. Charlotte sat beside her father's hospital bed, watching his determined struggle to sign the document before him. A formal letter to the regimental commander, written in shaking but precise handwriting. Will this help, Michael? She asked softly. It will remind the regiment of its own values, William answered, his military bearing returning despite his frailty. Sometimes duty requires disobedience. At the BBC studio, Jeffrey waited in makeup, his veteran's medals polished to gleaming. The producer approached nervously. Mr. Barnes, we've received a call from the palace. They're requesting we delay the interview until after tomorrow's guard ceremony. Interesting timing, Jeffrey remarked. Did they say why? Only that it would be in the national interest to wait. Jeffrey smiled knowingly. Then we shall certainly wait. I believe tomorrow will speak for itself. Echoed crowds gathered for the changing of the guard, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. Ryan O'Malley stood among them, court summons in pocket, embassy officials flanking him, his presence mandated by a judge who believed witnessing the ceremony would reinforce the gravity of his actions. The crowd gasped as the guards marched into view. Leading them against explicit orders was Corporal Michael Thornton. Colonel Harrington watched from the sidelines, William Hartley's letter heavy in his pocket. The old lieutenant's words had circulated among senior officers overnight, reminding them that regiments outlast political expediency. As the guards approached their positions, a figure emerged from the palace. Conversation ceased as a royal aide walked directly to Colonel Harrington, handed him an envelope, then retreated. Harrington read it, his face impassive despite its extraordinary contents. The ceremony proceeded with perfect precision. When it concluded, Harrington stepped forward. Her Majesty has taken personal notice of recent events, he announced, his voice carrying across the hushed courtyard. By royal prerogative, Corporal Michael Thornton is to receive commendation for his exemplary representation of guard standards. In the crowd, Ryan stepped forward unprompted, removed his baseball cap, and bowed his head in a gesture of genuine respect. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. The court hearing lasted less than 30 minutes. Ryan pleaded guilty to all charges, his statement of remorse genuine and unscripted. The judge imposed a substantial fine and a suspended sentence, noting his voluntary presence at the ceremony as evidence of sincere contrition. Outside the courthouse, Ryan approached the waiting media. I made a terrible mistake, he stated simply. I disrespected not just Corporal Thornton, but the tradition and honor he represents. There's no excuse for my behavior." Ryan paused, then added words no publicist had prepared. "Growing up, I was always told to stand up for myself. But I never understood what truly standing for something meant until I saw Corporal Thornton maintain his principles despite everything. That's real strength." Across London, Thornton sat beside William's hospital bed, Charlotte beside them. The formal letter of commendation from the palace rested on the blanket between them. The Queen's personal attention. William smiled weakly. "Not bad for a day's work, Corporal." "It was your letter that made the difference, sir," Thornton replied. "The Colonel said it reminded everyone what the regiment truly stands for." William's eyes shone with pride. "Soon you'll be calling me Father, not Sir, though both are titles I'll cherish." Charlotte squeezed Thornton's hand as her father drifted to sleep, the monitors showing stronger vital signs than he'd displayed in weeks. Major Winters had delivered news earlier that morning. Thornton's insubordination would not appear in his service record. Instead, he was being considered for the Sergeant Major training program, a recognition of leadership beyond mere obedience. Outside the hospital window, London carried on. Tourists still flocked to Buckingham Palace. Guards still stood their stoic watch. But something had shifted, a small reminder that beneath ceremonial tradition lay genuine strength, and behind the famous stoicism, real human courage. 1 year later, Sergeant Major Thornton stands at attention as a new class of Guard recruits assembles before him. Among their training materials, video of the incident, now part of official protocol instruction. The uniform isn't about standing still, Thornton tells them. It's about standing for something. In Boston, Ryan coaches youth boxing, teaching discipline instead of aggression. A framed photo sits in his gym bag, himself in London, properly posed beside a guard, respect having replaced entitlement. Geoffrey Barnes shows his grandchildren a new memorial at Wellington Barracks, honoring guards who maintain standards under pressure. Thornton's name sits alongside those from centuries past. William Hartley, against medical predictions, attends his daughter's wedding to Thornton, where generations of guards raise swords in salute. Outside Buckingham Palace, tourists still take photos, but signs now remind them. Behind each stoic guard stands centuries of unwavering courage, and a man who deserves their respect.